going to climb a tree.
Watch out.
Ah!
Hi there, and welcome to another episode of the Board Game Business Podcast. I'm your host, Richard New, and I'm here as always with Jeremy Commander and Brian Hink. Today we're going to be discussing what a production schedule looks like, and going from the game is designed, you probably pitched it to some manufacturers and tried to get them to help you out with it, but if people aren't biting, you decide, I'm going to go the Kickstarter route. Mm-hmm. How do I get my game from where it is? I feel it's good, it's balanced, ready to go. How do I get it out to people? And how long will that take? Mm-hmm. And Brian, since you've done this many times, would you take us through just sort of like a basic outline of all the things that you're going to have to do that you probably wouldn't even think of to get us through from the starting line to the finish? Because it's a marathon.
Yeah, and so, we use Kickstarter for all of our stuff. So we're going to go over a schedule that is based on Kickstarter. When Clayton and I create our schedule for a game, we usually start off with design complete for Brian, design complete for Clayton. So that's kind of our check off, where we say, I'm happy with the design as it is. I'm willing to sign off on the design. So I'll say that. And then Clayton will say, okay, now I'm ready after we've maybe done a couple more tweaks. Clayton will be like, okay, I'm ready, check, ready to sign off.
Do you feel it's too ready?
Yeah.
We do that too.
So that's usually kind of the first couple things. Once we're at that point, now we're ready to start moving into the next phase. And some high-level phases that you'll go through in creating a project would be creating art, doing the actual physical manufacturing, getting the Kickstarter campaign ready, sending it off to reviewers, either before a Kickstarter campaign or after it hits retail, telling retailers about it, shipping it from your manufacturer to your distribution warehouses or your fulfillment center, sending it out to backers. These are like big, high-level things that you'll be doing. And we can talk about the details of each one, but we won't get into the specifics of every single task you go through.
For instance, for art, we've talked about that at length in other podcasts.
Art's a really good one to get started with because that takes probably the longest of anything, and you might not think it does. And it also, when we talk about this too, each game is different. Mm-hmm. Art is going to be different for a micro game that has 18 cards compared to a huge Euro with maybe a deck builder.
Your big fantasy game with 300 unique fantasy cards.
Exactly, yeah. Think about Dominion, with hundreds of cards, each with, unique art on it, or Magic the Gathering, a new set of that, compared to Love Letter. Love Letter had, I think it was like 18 cards. You need 18 pictures, maybe a couple of
illustrations. No, because some of them are duplicated, right? There's 5 cards.
True.
It's a lot less than 18
That's
illustrations.
True. You have like a dozen, So that would be, it's going to be very different. But art takes a very long time. Can't remember who said it, but if you ask an artist or any creative person how long it's going to take to get something done, triple it. And that's going to be about what it is. They're like, oh, I can get that done in 2 months. It's going to take them 6 months. So put that in your
And I can tell you as someone, I consider myself a creative person.
Yeah.
I mean it, though.
Yeah.
I mean, I can get that in 2 months. Yeah, totally. And then it's like, did not expect it to take this long.
So the first thing you'd find a graphic designer and you'd find the illustrator. You'd probably find the illustrator first.
So I want to say that again, because that's really important. When people think about, I'm going to get art for my game.
Yeah.
I hired an artist. They drew stuff. Now I'm done. That the value of a graphic designer is perhaps equal to the art for a lot of games. If your game is a TCG level game with lots of things on the card, or Dominion, or there's iconography and there's costs and there's lots of things on there, the graphic designer is as important or more important than the artist.
Mm-hmm. We've talked about that before when we've talked about the back of the box and rules and putting them on there. So the graphic designer would be responsible for making sure things are legible, the colors pop off of each other, things are put in the right place so that, for instance, with cards, when you fan them out, you'll see the important stuff on the left-hand side, and they'll know that's where you would put that type of information and make it easy to see and clear.
So those are kind of 2 tasks. And then once you find them, you need to get a contract created. So you need to create a contract for each one, for your graphic designer, for your artist. You need to work with them to create it, to decide what goes in it. You need to get the signatures. So that would be another step. Once you have that, You need to create a list of all the art assets that you need to create, all the graphic design that you will need done, every symbol you need created by your graphic designer, and every card front, every card back. If you have player mats, if you have a board, all these are things that a graphic designer is going to have to work on. They're usually things that an illustrator will also have to illustrate. Don't forget about your rules. You'll probably want some illustrations for the rules. You might need some figures for the rules that a graphic designer might create to make it easier to understand your rules. So can't forget about that. You'll need the back of your box. You'll need the sides of your box. You'll need the time, the number of players, the ages, and in a way that's easy to see. You look on your game shelf and you see exactly the name, big name of the game, maybe the publisher, maybe, all of the things that you'd want when you're deciding which game to play. And have it all look really good. So that's just a couple of the first tasks that you need, for getting art for your game. I mean, of course, you also need to get the actual illustrations drawn and things laid out. And so you could create a task for every card, every piece of art you need, every graphic design that you need done, every piece of graphic design. So you have those 100 tasks, and you can lay that all out. That's just art. We've just started.
Oh, I was going to say, so now we're ready to go.
Right. So that's just, an example of, and there's going to be back and forth. There's going to be maybe getting it signed off by, different people, like, okay, this art looks good. Maybe you're using a license. You need to get each piece of art approved by whoever owns that license.
I just got a license game in the mail, and I bet the Kickstarter was delayed, I think, 2 years.
Yeah.
Due to licensing approvals for the art.
Right. So you need to take all of this into account, get started on it right away. Those are some of the first things you can do to kind of get the ball rolling. You'd want to figure out when they should happen. You'd probably want your logo done first so you can start marketing your game, telling people about it, and have a nice pretty logo, maybe even the front of the box, to show people, to put on a Kickstarter campaign, maybe do a pre-fundia page, maybe just send it off or put it up on Board Game Geek and start doing some conversations about it, or get a Kickstarter preview link going. But that logo will really serve you well. If you do that last, you're going to be waiting and probably have like a temporary logo and temporary art that you'll be showing everybody, and it won't look as shiny as if you get a really nice, really well made with a professional illustrator, professional graphic designer. So decide on when you want each thing done too. If you have more approvals that you think you'll need, you'd want to do those earlier.
The other thing to catch, you need to play test your final graphic design. Your graphic designer's done the work.
Yep.
Does that break the game visually, or does that work better? You need to test that.
Yeah. So that's basically art. And we won't go into detail on the other ones, but that's how you can imagine all of the tasks that you would have to do just for that. And then you'd also have marketing.
This includes making sure people know about the game.
Yeah.
Is it like before the Kickstarter campaign, or
definitely?
Okay.
Yep. You got to do marketing on Board Game Geek.
So now you're probably sending out your art. Your temporary art version of the game, prototypes, and getting them out to people.
Copies.
Get some reviews out there.
Yep. That'll take longer than you expect to. If you use like the Game Crafter or a print-on-demand site, that might take a month for them to just create it and get it shipped out to the reviewer that you have. Then you need them to learn it, get it to the table to play it enough times to do a review. They'll have to shoot maybe a video or write an article. You want to give them at least a month with the game in their hand to play it and make a video, and hopefully longer.
And that's so that you can put it on your Kickstarter campaign and make sure people see, this is something worth investing in.
Yep.
Okay.
Have it on day one. But another kind of section is the Kickstarter campaign. So there's so much to do with just the campaign page, getting your account set up so that you have a Stripe account connected, do the identity verification, create all the headers for your campaign, create all the content, run it by people to look at your page.
I've done that for both of you guys. You said, hey, take a look at this page, make sure nothing stands out to you or seems wonky with it.
Yep.
And if you're showing it to me, you guys are showing it to everyone you know and making sure everybody...
Yep.
This is before the clock starts on day one of your campaign.
Yeah.
It's making sure every link works, every video plays, everything looks beautiful and every question is answered.
That's the big one. Yeah. What are people wondering about your game that you're not telling them yet in your campaign page? That's what you want. So you can add that. Because otherwise you're going to get people who are just unsure if they want it back because you didn't answer that one question for them. You want how to play videos, maybe a walkthrough of the game. You want a nice shiny Kickstarter video. All of these things take a long time to get ready. Rules, you need rules ready to go. So those are on the page. Possibly a print and play version for them.
So now, are we ready to start the Kickstarter campaign?
Yeah, I'd say.
And how much time has passed between you and your partner checking off on the game and us ready to hit start on the clock?
Depends on how big your game is, but you probably want at least 3 months, at least, and that's if you know what you're doing. If you have a new
I would
creator,
go longer than that.
Yeah,
if I can get it.
If you're a new creator, you know you're probably 6 months out.
Okay.
You know, maybe more if you have a lot of homework.
Because now I want to get the rules done and the graphic design done and test that and make sure it works well before I push start on the Kickstarter, because then it's too late. And so I want enough runway time, and I want to build marketing hype for that as much as possible.
But you need to be able to keep that going, and that can be tricky.
Yep.
You know, if you have a big title, you know, like Scythe is for Stonemaier Games, like they knew that was going to be big, so they can keep that hype going for that 6 months. But you know, someone who's newer probably wouldn't be able to, and you probably wouldn't want to start that early. You know, you probably want to wait till everything is looking pretty good. You have something that people will get really excited about before you share it.
So a lot of these things can probably be happening at the same time. You can be waiting on your art at the same time that you're starting to send out the artless copies to the reviewers. At the same time, you're starting to build your page, but you'd like some of the art on the page, but you'll leave a blank space for that.
Yep.
So you can be doing a couple of these tasks at the same time.
Yeah.
I'm assuming during the Kickstarter campaign, you've talked about this before, how you wouldn't want to do a Kickstarter campaign while you're at Gen Con. Or something. I asked that question at one point, and you said,
Sure.
oh, there's too much going on.
Yeah.
Does it sort of cut out during the campaign? Like there's no other planning going on, it's all focused on let's just do this thing? Or are there other tasks that you're doing at the same time?
And if you have it all planned out from the beginning, which you will if you know what you're doing, like if you've done it before, if you have experience, it'll be all planned out, ready to go. Then you'll. But if you don't, then you'll be making changes. People will say, "Hey, we want this. We want these mats. We want these player mats. You know, this game is going to be terrible unless you have these because we won't know where to put stuff." And you'll be like, "Oh no, 4 people on the campaign said that, so I got to do it." And so then you do it, and you hustle, and you get quotes, and you figure out how to make it happen, and you get art and the artist and the graphic designer to get these player mats done, and so if you don't have it all planned out, then I think you'll be running around like crazy during the campaign too and replanning. But hopefully you have it all planned out.
You probably want to leave everything out just in case there's something that you need to run and do an extra couple tasks for.
But yeah, so as far as doing it in serial or doing it in parallel, if you're a newer creator, you're probably going to be kind of doing it more in serial. As you do it more, you know what you can do at the same time, and you can now have 10 things happening in each section. You can be working on some marketing stuff, some art stuff, some Kickstarter campaign page stuff. You do it all, at the same time. But you'll get better at that the more you make.
Okay, so someone who's brand new at this, is there a place that someone who has done this before has enumerated all the tasks that they'll need that they would never think of, and just a list out there somewhere of what they have to do, or is it something they have to...
Jamie Stegmeyer has a spreadsheet list you can get, and so does James Matthey. Okay. There may not be complete or everything you want, but those are 2 good places to start.
But a lot of it is just give yourself time, don't rush it, and learn as you go, and enjoy the learning experience. If you don't enjoy it, then you probably shouldn't be doing it. You probably should get a publisher to publish your game because they enjoy doing it. And we haven't even talked about shipping, logistics. Right. That in itself is more than one episode that we could go into. So I won't really touch much on that, but I mean that's
a lot of the stories that I hear from Jeremy is a lot about shipping. So going from manufacturing to shipping, fulfillment, all that other stuff, how much time would you say goes after the Kickstarter campaign before you never really quite finish, but and you still want to keep selling the games and everything, but till you're you feel like you're done with the process and it's out in the stores and people have it and people are happy with your product.
Sure.
How much time goes?
Well, manufacturing after the campaign is going to take roughly a month, and that's if your manufacturer is just ready and waiting for you and doesn't have anything else kind of lined up to go before you.
And you have no manufacturing issues.
Right.
Like, those little stands you want us to make. Turns out we can't make that after all. Yeah. Oh, you asked for this custom chipboard cutout. We can't do that.
There's a proofing phase, too.
Yeah.
That'll go before. You need to get digital proofs. You need a physical copy proof. So I'm talking just the manufacturing when all this proofing is done, too. I mean, the proofing can take well over a month, too. If could be a week or
because things change during the Kickstarter campaign, it might not be the same thing that you had originally.
Yep.
So
you might have art to finish after the campaign.
You might have stretch goals with more art and things you had to manufacture.
Yeah. So once you're done with all your campaign, your proofing, your manufacturing now, so that might take a month. Then it's going to take a month to get from China to the U.S. So you can figure a month. You could have customs delays that could increase that. So then it's going to take, if you use like a consolidator like we do, it'll be 2-3 weeks for them to announce the game to all the retailers out there. They'll make orders. Be a couple more weeks before they get it into their stores, before you can get it out to a distributor. Distributor gets it out to retailers. So you're talking at least 2.5 months from when campaign ends before it could get into stores. And that would be if everything works perfectly and you know exactly what you're doing.
Which is when we cue Jeremy.
I have a lot of Kickstarters that still haven't fulfilled. They may have been backed a year or 2 years ago, and they've been delayed in manufacturing, and something they had added or not quoted properly, and it takes much longer for them to manufacturing, and they're going around in circles with that. Or they ran out of money. They underestimated the shipping, and they have all the product in a warehouse somewhere, and they no longer have the money to ship it out to their backers. And so they're like, well, now what do we do? Do we try to sell it at cons to raise enough money to ship it out? Or do we put it in retail, and the retailer has it before the backers do to have enough money to pay the fulfillment company to ship it out? And they're stuck. And I see all kinds of things like that happening all the time. If you are going to run a Kickstarter campaign, one of the best things you can do is back other campaigns so you can watch their updates and learn the lessons they're learning. Because I see so many, first created, zero backed. And I'm like, oh, that guy is going to learn some hard lessons.
There are some tools that kind of help us manage all these tasks, too.
I was going to say, because we've talked about where we can get a list, what, for the new people that are trying to work this out, you were sort of motioning like all the tasks that you have and sort of monitoring that. How do you do that?
Yeah, there's you can just use a spreadsheet if you want. Any tool, Excel or Google Sheets or whatever you want to do. That's an easy one. Most people are familiar with. That can work for you. There's also a lot of free task management tools also out there. We've used Asana. We usually use that for detailed tasks where you can create a task, put details on it. So it might be create a Board Game Geek ad, and then you put in the dimensions, the resolution that you need, the DPI that you need for that image, what the image is targeting, when it needs to be due, when it's due, who's going to make it, so you can assign it to a person, the priority level, that kind of thing. So you can have all these tasks with all the information in there, especially if you're working with multiple resources. I can add something that Clayton is going to work on, but I can add all the details into it so that I don't need to send him a whole email and need to go back and forth. It's just all in there. He can put it in his list, his task lists, and knows the priority, knows the due date, and he can just work on the next thing.
There are other project management things I can use. I can use something like Basecamp or Slack or other things as well.
And then one thing that is really important for board games is a way to see which task you can do at the same time. And the best way to do that is a Gantt chart. So on the left is going to be the tasks. So you're going to have all the tasks. And then going towards the right is going to be the timeline for the project. So if your project is going to be a year-long project, then you'd have it start today and then end in a year. And then along the way, you'd have each task. So you have your list of, we'll say, 100 tasks. And those 100 tasks will be everything you need to have accomplished in the year. And then there's going to be a little box after each one of how long that task is going to take. So art might be 4 months that you put from April 1st to May, June, July 30th. And so then that's how long art's going to take. But you have a bunch of other tasks in there along the way that you're working on at the same time in parallel.
So you can show which things can be done in parallel and which things. And I presume that you can program in what tasks have prerequisites of other tasks.
Dependencies. So when you have when this task can't be started until these 4 tasks are done, you know to work on those 4 tasks first because that one is dependent on it.
Okay.
And once those 4 are done,
that one will free up 10 other tasks that you can get started on.
There's a free tool we use called Ganter. Ganter.com is where you can find that free tool.
So when we're talking about it from start to finish, from you and your design partner both checking off and saying the game's done to it being out into stores, we're talking about a 9-10 month process at probably minimum.
Yeah.
If I'm counting up what you said,
that's about right. Yeah,
right.
That's about right, and that's for us who have done it many times in the past.
So first time doing it with a very basic, let's even say 54 card game.
Yeah, it's going to be over a year before that's done. Ready to go. But
so be prepared to be patient, I guess.
Yeah.
Thank you guys for joining me. I've been your host, Richard New, and I'm here as always with Brian Hink and Jeremy Commander. We wanted to take a moment out just to mention that as of this recording, we don't have any reviews on our
ratings.
iTunes.
I don't think so. I think I checked that the other day. I don't think we have any.
Okay, so if you don't like the show, give us the 1-star review.
Yeah.
And, it will stand.
We'll take those too.
But we'd be very happy to see what people would rate the show and on iTunes and maybe boost us up some ranks there.
That'd be awesome.
All right. Well, thank you very much, and I'll see you across the table someday.
Hey, this is Richard to remind you that you can check out our website at boardgame.business. Old episodes are indexed by subject to make finding an answer to your question easier. You can find links to our BGG Guild, other networking sites, and, if you feel like supporting us, our Patreon account. Donations are used for equipment to improve the presentation of our podcast. Thanks for watching or listening.
Thanks so much for watching the Dice Tower videos. Find more great videos and reviews as well as our top-rated audio podcast at Dicetower.com. You can also find other great shows at DicetowerNetwork.com. I'm Eric Summerer, and you've been watching The Dice Tower. The Dice Tower is sponsored by Cool Stuff Inc., where you can find great games for great prices. Cool stuff in stock. Check them out at CoolStuffInc.com.